Hey guys, Gary's Good News Only, last week of May, so let's jump right into it. This is episode 52 of our Gary's Good News Only. Started about a year ago. We skipped a few weeks, so this is our anniversary edition. So the reason behind this, as I've told you before, is that the pandemic is really over now, but the media is only giving us doom and gloom. They still can try to do that, but even they're having to admit that this thing's over with. But while the media is admitting it, they still suck. They suck tremendously, and they lie every time they can. But what we do know is they cannot deny the good news. So at some point, Gary's Good News will go away because even they have to admit this is over. But imagine if I told you cancer cases were down 90% because of a wonder drug, herd immunity, or you had already had it once, you couldn't get it again. You would declare the war on cancer over. Sadly, that hasn't happened. But with COVID, it has happened. Cases are down 90%, and we're down to under 100 a day in South Carolina this week. But some in the media, many in the government, and everyone at CDC doesn't want this over because they still want their 15 minutes of relevance. Who will care anything about what Dr. Fauci says? I personally don't anyway. But what would you care what he has to say in 3 months or 4 months? So he has to keep his fame. So today we're going to stick with coronavirus. Let's talk about what's going on there. All right, so there's a website called rationalground.com. It's epidemiologists, it's doctors. It's not a political hack page. It's not a conspiracy theory page. These are political people from all political persuasions, from all the massive major universities like Stanford and Oxford and Yale and Harvard, the community colleges kind of level, right? This is what they said. To be clear, COVID-19 is not a hoax. It is real and it's caused real world damage, real world heartbreak, but it is not the killer that it's been made out to be. Conversely, the public health response to COVID-19 has been an abysmal failure. I've told you all that many times. At every term, the effect and dangers of COVID-19 have been exaggerated, and the collateral damage of government mandates and government and media-induced panic has been swept under the rug. Official after officials turn blind eye to once accepted standards, only to follow the virtue signaling, have to do something crowds. How do we do this? How do we turn a disease that was equivalent to a bad flu into a world disaster? We overreacted. We changed the way we detect the virus. We changed the way we record deaths. We tried to control the uncontrollable. We used COVID-19 as a political tool. We destroyed literally and metaphorically tens of thousands of lives with panic, lockdown, and restrictions. And we set into motion events that would ensure the devastation for years to come. These are bold statements that fly against the prevailing narrative, but they're supported by the data. And I'm only going to give you a little bit of what they say. They said, in perhaps the most significant panic-filled move, the CDC changed how mortality statistics are gathered. The COVID-19 labeled deaths became ubiquitous. Previous to the change, COVID-19 needed to be the underlying condition in the chain of events that led to the immediate cause of death for the death to be considered COVID-19. Under the new guidelines, instead of having to be the underlying cause of death, it merely had to be a contributing factor. A death would be labeled as COVID-19. Thus, an Alzheimer patient on death's door who was pushed the last step through the doorway by COVID-19 is now a full-blown COVID-19 death. Never mind that the flu was never treated this way, and such a change made COVID-19 labeled deaths incomparable to any other mode of death. These deaths were now all COVID-19 deaths. This change in record keeping became the fuel to power the long-term panic, and we became more efficient at finding COVID. We also became more willing to put COVID on the death certificates, regardless of the level of contribution. If we labeled the flu like we labeled COVID-19, the number of deaths, we already average 60,000 deaths a year. There would be 600,000 because they label everything COVID. We've known this. We've seen motorcycle accidents. One state said if you die within 30 days of a positive test, regardless if you've recovered or not, it's a COVID death. Secondly, so that's really good news to know that they've exaggerated, as I've told y'all for a long time. Even the media is now admitting it. Antibodies. We found out, they've been telling you all along in the media that your antibodies waned after 4 to 6 weeks. That's complete bunk. Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, they say that these cells could persist for a complete lifetime and keep churning out antibodies all the while. They said that the studies are showing 11, 12, 13 months after people have COVID, their antibodies are increasing, not decreasing. They decrease immediately after you have it. Then they start going up, which is normal. And the media try to use this to try to say, you won't be protected after 4 to 6 weeks. They're saying, no, you could have lifetime protection of immunity if you've already had it. So once again, your media lied. Imagine that. Let's talk about numbers. Vaccines. 361 million vaccines have been administered or have been distributed. 166 million people have gotten it one dose. 133 million fully vaccinated. That's almost 50% of the entire population now is vaccinated. 7-day tracker, 27,000 odd cases. That's down 20%. Since last week, 90% overall. 7-day average on positive tests is now 3%, 97% test negative, 15.1% down on hospitalizations, and 10.5% down the last 7 days on death. So it's going away. It's gone. It's over. All right. Hope everybody has a happy Memorial Day, and we will see you next week.